I stared at this month's budget for a long time. Everything looked organized, yet our money still disappeared faster than I expected. I blamed rising prices and unexpected expenses, believing something outside my control was causing the problem. That night, I reviewed every transaction on my phone, but none of the purchases seemed expensive on their own. As I looked at them together, I began noticing a pattern I had never seen before. My name is Clara. I once thought our family's problem was a flawed budget, until I realized the real challenge might be how I decided what truly mattered. The morning felt warm and ordinary as I made breakfast, while Armand helped Mira get ready for school. After they left, I cleared the table and gathered a few grocery receipts without thinking much about them. As I folded laundry, I noticed every purchase had seemed reasonable when I made it. Later, I reviewed my budget again, but even with every expense recorded, something still felt off. A shopping promotion almost tempted me, but I paused and wondered if I was repeating the same old habit. That evening, I smiled as Armand and Mira laughed together, though my mind kept returning to the budget notebook. Before bed, I reviewed the month's spending and realized that, even without obvious mistakes, life still felt like we were always chasing something. The next morning, after the house became quiet again, I made myself a warm cup of tea. Instead of only checking the balance, I slowly read through every transaction in this month's bank history. One coffee purchase caught my attention right away. I remembered how exhausted I had felt that day and how I quietly told myself I deserved a small treat. Then I saw the purchase for a table decoration. I remembered watching someone's beautifully organized home and suddenly feeling like ours needed something new too. I kept scrolling through the list. None of the purchases seemed expensive on their own, yet together they had quietly grown into something much bigger. I closed my eyes for a moment and let the memories settle. Every purchase had a reason, but not every reason had truly come from necessity. I found myself repeating familiar excuses in my head. Every one of them sounded reasonable, yet something still felt unfinished. I stared at my phone for a long time before one question quietly settled into my mind. If all these purchases were truly important, why didn't I actually feel happier after buying them? Over the next few days, I stopped focusing only on my spending and started noticing how I felt before reaching for my wallet. I discovered I was most tempted to shop whenever I felt tired, bored, or compared my life with someone else's. I realized spending had often become my quickest way to soothe emotions I never paused to understand. One afternoon, Armand found me with my budget notebook, and I smiled because this time I wasn't really counting money. We laughed together, and I realized I was only beginning to understand what had been happening inside me. That night, I added a new column beside every expense, recording the feeling I had when I made each purchase. For the first time, I saw the real problem wasn't my budget. It was that my priorities had quietly drifted out of place. The next few days felt completely ordinary, but I began paying closer attention to every spending decision I made. I realized my emotions often decided to spend long before logic had a chance to speak. One afternoon, I paused in front of a flower pot and asked myself if I wanted it or simply wanted a moment of comfort. I walked away with a smile, knowing I had made a thoughtful choice instead of an automatic one. When I got home, coloring with Mira brought me far more joy than buying the flower pot ever could. That night, I reviewed my expenses and clearly saw the difference between purchases that truly helped our family and those that only offered temporary relief. I realized I had often chased short-lived happiness while quietly postponing the moments that mattered most. On Saturday, Mira and I tidied the bookshelf together, filling the quiet house with laughter. She found our old library tickets and happily asked when we could go back to read together. Her simple question made me realize how long it had been since our last visit. I thought about the small things I had bought for myself while forgetting something that meant so much to her. Mira didn't want expensive gifts. She simply wanted to spend time reading beside me. I realized our money hadn't disappeared. It had quietly gone toward comforting me instead of creating family memories. As I hugged Mira, I understood our budget felt too small, not because we lacked money, but because I had often chosen short-term comfort over lasting moments together. That night, I sat with my budget notebook and Mira's drawing, wondering if our money truly reflected what we valued most. I realized the real question wasn't whether our budget worked, but whether it matched our priorities. On a blank page, I drew a simple pyramid, placing our family's basic needs at the foundation. Above that, I listed growth education, savings, books, and experiences that would help our family thrive. At the top, I wrote joy, including coffee, eating out, small purchases, and entertainment. As I sorted our spending, I saw we had filled the joy layer while leaving too little room for growth. In that moment, I understood my budget had never failed me. It had simply reflected the quiet choices I made every day. After dinner, Armand and I shared tea on the porch, enjoying the quiet before I told him what I had realized. I admitted our budget wasn't the problem. It was simply reflecting the priorities we had chosen. I showed him the pyramid and explained how I had divided our spending into survival, growth, and joy. Our men quietly agreed that we had been busy for a long time without truly feeling like we were moving forward. We realized too much of our time and money had gone toward things that faded quickly. Armand said we didn't need to give up life's small joys. We just needed to take care of growth first, so we could enjoy them without guilt. That night, I no longer felt like I was managing our budget alone. We were building our family's priorities together. The next morning, I added one question beside every expense. Is this building our family, or only comforting me for a moment? A week later, I admired a bag at the mall, but realized I didn't truly need to bring it home. That weekend, we took Mira to the library, and her excitement over books made the day feel more meaningful than any purchase. That night, I looked at my priority pyramid and saw the growth section slowly becoming stronger. I still enjoyed coffee and family dinners, but now I could do so without guilt because they fit our priorities. Even when unexpected expenses appeared, I no longer felt like our money was disappearing because I knew where it was going. At the end of the month, I smiled as I closed my notebook, knowing our small choices were finally leading us toward the life we truly wanted. I learned that a budget was never really the problem. It is only a map, while the direction still depends on the person holding it. And I often chose what felt good for a moment without noticing I was drifting away from what mattered most. Now, whenever I spend money, I no longer ask if I can afford it. Instead, I quietly ask whether it reflects the values Armin and I hope to pass on to Mira. And that simple question has slowly changed many small choices I make. I believe every family has different priorities, and no one needs to live exactly the same way. Still, I often wonder whether the money we spend truly follows the values we believe in, because small choices repeated every day quietly shape a family's future. If today's story stayed with you, I'd be happy if you continued this journey with us at Clara's Family Journal. We simply want to learn about family, money, and a calmer way of living. Not to become a perfect family, but to keep noticing what truly matters. Today I want to leave you with one quiet question. What is something you buy regularly, even though deep down, you know it is not your family's biggest priority, and why does it still feel so hard to stop?